So, Dwayne, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to educators and instructional designers who are just beginning to explore how AI might shape their curriculum?
This is another great question. I mean, we could probably spend a while just kind of like kind of thinking through this. One, if you haven't used these tools, one of the best ways to use is just to go out and play with them. Right, go out there and try different things, and see what it does, and really try to find those limitations and boundaries, because that's really important to kind of understand where these technologies are at. But the best advice I would say is start with the learning outcomes. What are you trying to achieve? And then translate that to what is the student doing? What is the student doing to achieve that outcome that you've articulated? And then use that as your starting point. Don't use that we're going to use AI, right? Start with that learning outcome. You may find that to achieve that learning outcome, you don't need any technology, and that's okay, and that's fine, right? It's focus on what you're trying to achieve in that learning outcome, and and I think you've seen this too, right? Don't go crazy with learning objectives. If you
Yes.
if you got a course that's a pretty short course and you got 12 objectives, well, you're probably not achieving any of them, right? You, so look at truly what you're using those objectives for to achieve, and and I think when you do that, you'll find that you'll start to become a better objective writer also, because you'll read
Mm,
it and you'll be like, okay, what is the student doing? What is this telling me that the student's doing? And then you can start plugging in, start thinking through that pathway of how they're getting to that objective. And then you'd be like, oh, maybe I need to reword this a little bit to be a little clearer or a little more concise, or to be a little more measurable. That's always a big piece with objectives, is we write this great
yes.
objective, but it's not measurable, right? So
It's not
it doesn't do us any
measurable.
good.
Yep. Absolutely. I find that a lot in my work, because I think a lot of these faculty that I work with, they're such experts at the curriculum, right? Or at the teaching aspect, and they know the content so well, but to translate that into curriculum and for students to be able to digest and be able to absorb is a whole thing entirely. Like they'll put two Bloom's verbs at the beginning of an objective, identify and describe this, or they'll say identify this and describe that in the same objective. Or they'll put too much into it and it's like 3 lines long in a Word document. I'm like, that's not an objective. That's more like a prompt. So yeah, I know what you mean. Yep. And they want to give them 8 objectives. You're right, in a topic. So it's yeah, it's a overload for sure. So I'm trying to coach them and teach them. This is the way to make it the most effective. So I agree
It,
with you. Yeah.
yeah,
If you have
and it's
yeah.
it's the concept of alignment, right? I mean,
Right.
looking at what you're doing at at each step, and this we kind of discussed this, right, when I talked about where we got to start with the AI in education. Now we've got to starting on more of that process versus the product, because right, if we go back to like traditional means of instructional design, we backwards plan basically, right? We write an objective, it tells us what the assessment is, we build the assessment with the rubric, and then we just fill in the content that's aligned with meeting that objective. Well, with AI, I can skip all of that and just do the assessment, right? And then I
Right.
haven't had the cognitive effort to achieve that learning outcome that you spent a whole bunch of time analyzing and writing and trying to get. That's what we're trying to achieve. So we really have to start now looking at those individual processes of achieving, getting to that product, and really focusing on there, and then using that as a means of assessment of learning versus that just that final product checkpoint.